Hello there, welcome to End-to-End Solution Architect session. Today I'll be talking about how can you use Amazon Athena service to query data from S3 bucket. So if you are following our AWS Data Lake series, then you know that we are using multiple approaches to create AWS Data Lake solution. Now the architecture you see over here, it is a overloaded architecture. Definitely it is not so complex as it looks like. It has multiple approaches combined design. Now before jumping into the practical part, let me tell you that if you are interested in role-based skill development for AWS Cloud Practitioner, Azure Fundamental Cloud Digital Leader, or Terraform Associate, feel free to visit our website e2esolutionarchitect.com, or you can drop a note to contact us at e2esolutionarchitect.com. The next is, in summer, we are organizing in-person 5 days classroom training. It is basically a boot camp where the attendees will be creating solutions in AWS, Microsoft Azure, and will enhance their skill in infrastructure, networking, security, DevOps based on AWS Cloud or Azure Cloud. Now let's jump into the practical part of how we can use Athena service to query data from S3. I am logged into my AWS Management Console. First, let me take you to the S3, the one we have created, the S3 buckets for our landing zone, raw zone and clean zone. Here is our S3 bucket. You are already aware about it, and we have two folders, which is raw zone and clean zone. Now in clean zone, so far we have already data available. So inside clean zone we have the streaming data, and inside streaming data we have this cleaned data already there, because we have already used AWS Glue for transforming and loading data from raw zone to clean zone. Well, and let's download this one and let me show you that how is the data structure. So clicking on download, and here you see that it is our CSV format data, where we have a sample data of user and message, around 20 rows of data. Okay, so basically we want to use Amazon Athena service to query this data which is sitting in AWS S3 bucket. So let's go to our management console. Now open Athena. Now the first thing after you open it, if you are using it for the first time, then go to the left side panel, click over work groups. So work group is basically a container. So whenever we will be creating any table in Athena service, that table will be in that particular work group. Okay, so clicking on create work group, just giving a name, suppose TASA Athena work group. In this session I am using Athena SQL, upgrade query engine automatic. Now our next part is query result configuration. Here it is, although it is optional, but it says that where the query result, the output basically will be stored. Okay, now let's go to our S3 bucket over here. So in S3 bucket we know that we have a raw zone and clean zone. So once we are using Athena, let's create a new folder for Athena output. Click create folder. Okay, so our bucket location will be bucket name / Athena output. So over here we can select by clicking on browse S3. This is our bucket, and simply selecting Athena output over here. Click choose and give a slash over here. Now if you scroll down, you go by this settings optional. I am not making any changes over here. Per query data use control. So you can set per query data uses over here. Since it is a very small data, we don't need the terabyte even. Few megabyte, 100,000 megabyte, that is more than enough for us. And over there, work group data uses alert optional. We are not creating any alarm at this point. Tag, let's add one tag over here. It is a good practice. Click on create work group. Okay, so our work group has been created. Now let's go to our query editor. So we are back to our query editor. Now the first thing is that when you create work group, or when you are starting to run your query or create the table, make sure that your appropriate work group is selected. So we want to use the work group, the one which we created very recently. Fine. Now it is the time that we have to create the table. Now it is showing that data source, which is actually the AWS data catalog, which is coming from Glue. So you see this database, which is already, it is selecting by default E2E, say Glue DB Redshift, or there are other databases as well. Now if you are following our AWS data lake series, then you know that how we created this database. So this is in our session where I showed that how you can create the ETL job or AWS Glue job to transform and load data from S3 to Amazon Redshift. Well, so I'll be showing both the ways, that using this data catalog and without using this data catalog. So if we use this data catalog, so it means that we have this database selected, which is basically the Glue database, and Glue database means S3 clean. If you remember that we created this Glue database for S3 clean zone, and in our case we are trying to query data from S3 clean zone by Athena service. So once we selected this database S3 clean, it has automatically selected the table. So in table we see that we have this table structure already defined. The reason is when the crawler executed, it actually created or analyzed the schema of that particular table. If you have landed directly in this session, then definitely you are finding it hard to relate that where this database or this data catalog or this table has come from. Okay, so I request you to please check our past data lake session where I have explained how can you create a Glue job which will pull data from S3 and populate Amazon Redshift over there. But still, as I said that I'll be showing you with data catalog and without data catalog as well. So with data catalog, as we see that we have our tables already over here. Now the table you see over here, streaming underscore data, let me click over here and it will show preview table. So I'm clicking on preview table. And if I scroll down, you see that it has pulled the query result just by selecting. It's like that select star from the whole table over here. Okay, so it has just executed select star from table name and limit 10. Okay, so this is the option 1 using the data catalog, and suppose you don't have that Glue data catalog created. So how can you pull your data directly from S3 into Athena? Let me show that. So here just click over create click over S3 bucket data. Just give a table name because here is the table which is being created in Athena. Okay, so create a table messages. Okay, so it is asking for database configuration. Since we have this existing database, by default it is selecting, but now let's create a new database over here. Just give a name like AWS Athena DB S3 clean. So it means that just for the readability that we are using this, creating this Athena DB for our S3 clean zone. Okay, now data set. This is basically the location of input data set, means where our data or input data exists. That is basically in our S3 clean zone. So click over or browse S3, that particular folder. We are into our S3 bucket over here, just selecting clean zone, and inside clean zone we have our streaming data. Give us / over here. Okay, now it is saying that table type, which type of table it is. So let it be whatever it is, Apache Hive. File format it is asking. So in our case the file format is CSV, because I showed that the file which is inside our clean zone, it has the comma separated value format. Okay, so crawler is that it analyzes the data automatically and creates the schema, so you do not need to manually add that thing over here. But in our case, since we are creating this table in Athena manually, we have to add those column name also manually. Now let's create this column name. Well, so far I have added all the columns, so manually it took time definitely. However, I have added all the columns over here, as you see, starting from the username, user location, user description, whatever we have in our input data. So we have this in our input data, user followers, user friends, and with their proper column type, varchar, boolean, big int, string, like this. Okay, let's move. Table properties over here. Write compression, we are not selecting anything, we are not making any zip at this point, we are not using any encrypted data set. Okay, partition details, since we have very less amount of data, we do not need to go for the partition, we do not need for that. Okay, bucketing option is that we are not selecting any bucket also over here. Okay, it is also option at this moment. Now it's showing that preview table query. So this is the query it is going to run and create a table which the name will be this. Okay, so simply I'm just clicking on create table. Okay, now when I added this column, when it is a varchar type, it is asking for the length. So let's put this a. Okay, now let's come, and it has updated the preview of the table query. Clicking on create table, it is creating the table. Okay, so far over here, as you see that this query has been executed, it's showing that completed, query successful. So it means that our table has been created with this database name, as we see that AWS Athena DB S3 clean. Okay, now let's select the database from here. So we will find that our Athena DB is from here, and here is our table. So the new table we created over here, actually AWS Athena table messages, this table is now here, and if we click on this plus icon, it shows all the columns which we added manually. Okay, now I'm clicking on these 3 dots and clicking on preview table. Okay, so the query has been executed, and you see that it has pulled the data from S3 clean zone where it is actually pointing to, and it showed the result. And as we know that it is limit 10, so it has pulled only the 10 rows from the table, and this is our complete data. We didn't miss any data from there. Okay, so this is how you can use your glue database, or you can create a new database which directly connects to your S3 bucket and create a table in Amazon Athena to run any query you want in your S3 bucket data. I hope so far you have understood both the options. The first option is when you are using the database for your AWS Glue database, and the next option is that when you are creating a database which connects to your S3 bucket and create an Athena table and you run your query on your Athena table. Thank you for your time. If you have any query, please feel free to comment in the video. If you are interested to get in touch with us, please drop a note to contact us at e2esolutionarchitect.com. Or if you are interested in any role-based IT development training or certification focused training, please visit our website e2esolutionarchitect.com. Thank you. See you in our next session.